Welcome, everyone, to Latter Daily Digest. We aim to promote creators. We have on our show the creator of the Mormon Atheist. And Derrek, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me back, Gene. So
what's today's show's about, or do you want to just get into it?
Well, I can tell you. So today's show is going to be about First Nephi, chapter 3. We're continuing along with our series here. So if you want to get caught up, you can go back and watch the first couple of episodes. We're getting better at this, so bear with us, bear with me.
Nowhere to go but up. That's what I say.
That's right. I am practicing. I am working on it. I am doing all of these things to try to hone the skills.
And we're just a couple of guys. We're not experts. We're not scholars.
Right.
Derrek just read the scriptures really fast in a few months and saw parallels and saw interesting things. And he had been connected already with some of the ancient mythology, and he was noticing similarities, and he decided he wanted to have a study group. And I said, let's do the study group together. And so here it is. So if you have any comments, if you want to make a comment, please make the comment have some sort of meat to it. Don't just say Gene's ugly or something like that.
Yeah.
Some true things are not useful. But anyway,
yes.
Yeah, have something to back it up, have something to converse about. Yes, so anyway, go ahead, Derrek.
Yeah, I would like to just add to that. If you do comment, provide links to whatever it is you're arguing. All right, so today we're talking about chapter 3, First Nephi. In this chapter, we are going to talk about the lost 116 pages. We're going to talk about Reformed Egyptian. We're going to throw in a little bit of magic and also the character papers. We're going to see just how exactly were those character papers written, okay?
And the character papers are in the news.
Oh, are they?
Because they were part of the sale of the Kirtland Temple and other properties and items from the Community of Christ to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So there you go. It's timely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess you could call it a divine intervention.
That's right.
Okay, so let's dive into this. Okay, so everybody, as you know, this is an interactive. These interviews are interactive, and the reason why is because it's to get you to think and to use the Book of Mormon, to read the Book of Mormon. Okay, that's the entire goal here. Okay, so first of all, if on a follow-up, if you remember in the last video, chapter 2, one of the questions I had was, what's going on with the witnesses? Okay. So if you remember, I went back to, you can go back to chapter 2, verse 23 and 24, and you can read that as far as what exactly am I talking about, okay? So let's recap. We'll go to First Nephi, chapter 2, verse 23 and 24. Okay, so it says, "For behold, in the day that they shall rebel," we're reading right directly out of the Book of Mormon, okay? "For the day they shall rebel against me, I will curse them, even with a sore curse, and they shall have no power over thy seed, except thy seed shall rebel against me also." 24. "And if it say, be that they rebel against me, they shall be a scourge unto thy seed, to stir them up in the days of remembrance." Okay, so that passage is what prompted me to think about the witnesses, right? Because so far, chapters 1 and chapters 2 are more or less all about the witnesses, right? So with that in mind, okay, now we're going to start in on today's presentation. So we're talking about chapter 3, okay, in First Nephi, chapter 3. But I want to start out in Doctrine and Covenants, section 10. Okay, so we're going to go to Doctrine and Covenants, section 10, and we're going to read the paragraph that is above. That's above the whole thing, right? It
Like the intro,
yeah.
the
Okay,
summary.
that's right. All right, so let's read section 10. Okay, revelations given unto Joseph Smith at Harmony, Pennsylvania in the summer of 1828. Remember that date, 1828. Herein the Lord informs Joseph Smith of alterations made by wicked men in the 116 manuscript pages from the translation of the Book of Lehi. Okay, that's going to be important here in a minute also. The Book of Lehi in the Book of Mormon. Okay, so the Book of Lehi is, at this time, is part of the Book of Mormon. Okay, these manuscript pages had been lost from possession of Martin Harris. Remember the witnesses, right? To whom the sheets had been temporarily entrusted. And then it says, see section 3. All right, well, that's interesting. Let's go to section 3 and see what section 3 has to say about it, right? So section 3 comes along. And again, we're going to read the paragraph, the introduction in section 3 of the Doctrine and Covenant. Revelation given to Joseph Smith by at New Harmony, Pennsylvania, July 1828. This, when was the Book of Mormon published, right? 1830. Okay, so this is 1828. He's having these revelations relating to the lost 116 pages of the manuscript, translated from the first part of the Book of Mormon, which was called the Book of Lehi. The prophet had reluctantly allowed those pages to pass from his custody to that of Martin Harris, who had served for a brief period as scribe in the translation of the Book of Mormon. This revelation was given through the Urim and Thummim. Okay, so the Urim and Thummim is a whole nother subject, a whole nother topic. But one thing I would like to say about the Urim and Thummim, don't you think the Jewish people would want that back? I mean, that's directly from Aaron, right? Moses' brother. Good night. That's a whole nother topic, though. Okay,
That's right.
that's all I got. That's all I got to say about that. All right, so now let's go back to section 10, and let's finish reading section 10, and we're going to continue where we left off. The evil design was to await the expected retranslation of the matter covered by the stolen pages, and then to discredit the translator by showing discrepancies created by the alterations. That this wicked purpose had been conceived by the evil one and was known to the Lord. You got to remember the evil one, okay? This video, you're probably going to have to rewind it and watch it a couple of times, because there's some really good information in here, okay? And it might be a bit much for some people. All right, so continuing on. From the evil one, and was known to the Lord even while Mormon, the ancient Nephite historian, was making his abridgment of the accumulated plates, is shown in the Book of Mormon. All right, well, that's interesting. So what does it have to do with chapter 3? Well, let's keep going. This is fun stuff, guys. All right, so now we finished the paragraph. Let's go to, we're still in section 10. Let's go to verse 8 through 18. Okay, we're going to do
of section 10
of section 10 of the Doctrine and Covenants.
Okay,
we're going to go 8 to 18. Okay, now we're going to read this. Okay, this is going to, bear with me here. I'm not a very good reader. So verse 8, section 10, Doctrine and Covenants. And because you have delivered the writings into his hands, behold, wicked men have taken them from you. Okay, he's talking about Martin Harris right here. Okay, remember section 3. Okay, you got to keep in context here. Okay, perspective as well. Now we're going to go to 9. Therefore you have delivered them up, ye, that which was sacred unto the wickedness. And behold, Satan, remember the evil one, right? Satan hath put it into their hearts to alter the words which you have caused to be written, or which you have translated, which have gone out of your hands. 11. And behold, I say unto you that because they have altered the words, they read contrary from that which you translated and caused to be written. 12. And on this wise, the devil has sought to lay a cunning plan that he may destroy this work. That's the book of Nephi, right? The book of Lehi, right? For he hath put into their hearts to do this, that by lying they may say they have caught you the words which you have pretended to translate. 14. Verily, I love that word. Verily, it's such a fun word, right? Verily, I say unto you that I will not suffer that Satan hath accomplished his evil design in the thing. 15. For behold, he has put it into their hearts to get thee to tempt the Lord thy God in asking to translate it over again. 16. And then behold, they say and think in their hearts, we will see if God has given him power to translate. If so, he will also give him power again. And if God giveth him power again, or if he translates again, or in other words, right? Because what was the purpose, right? They altered the 116 pages to see if he really had the power, right? If he bringeth forth the same words, behold, we have the same with us, right? They got the papers, so they know, right? They're going to compare papers, and we have altered them. Okay, so they've altered.
That's right.
The
That's their
words.
cunning plan.
That's right. So let's hit 18, guys. This is the last verse. Therefore, they will not agree, and we will say that he has lied in his words, and that he has no gift, and that he has no power. Okay. So then the rest of section 10 goes on like that, and it goes on. But the piece that I read is important to this particular topic. Okay. All right. So what is he doing in section 10, right? He's scolding Martin Harris. Remember First Nephi 23 and 24. If you read Doctrine and Covenants 1 through 19, you will see absolute hatred for Martin Harris. He's really mad that Martin Harris lost those papers. Okay. And you go back to 23 and 24, right? Chapter 2. So with that being said, we kind of set the stage here a little bit. All right. So now let's actually go to chapter 3 and let's get started. So we're going to go to First Nephi chapter 3. Okay. So in chapter 3, verses 1 through 8 are basically, I'm going to kind of summarize it here. It starts out with the usual, right? The father has a dream. He tells his father that they're going to go and get the plates. Okay, this is Nephi talking to Lehi, that they're going to go get the plates, right? Which is the 116 pages. And the father, more or less, in a nutshell, through angelic ways, basically says, Godspeed. Good for you. God bless you. Okay. So where are they going? Right? Where are they going? Well, they're going to get the pages, right? So let's start out with verse 9. So chapter 3, First Nephi, verse 9. And I, Nephi, and my brethren took the journey in the wilderness, right? Where are they going? They're going to get the plates. With our tents to go up to the land of Jerusalem, okay? They're going to get the plates. Verse 10. Hold on, I got to read this. Verse 10. And it came to pass that when we had gone up to the land of Jerusalem, and I and my brethren did consult one another. Okay. So you can imagine them, right? I want you to use some imagination here. They're going to get the plates, right? These guys took the pages and and they're mad, right? Joseph's mad, he's furious. So you can imagine him and somebody else. It doesn't really say who, but you can almost bet the bank it's either Martin Harris or Sidney Rigdon, right? That goes to get these plates, right? To these pages. So also they're the wicked men, right? They're standing in front, getting in the wicked men's, and they're just standing there looking at each other. So let's go to verse 11. Chapter 3, 1 Nephi, verse 11. And we cast lots. Who of us should go unto the house of Laban, right? Is Laban's the evil one, right? And it came to pass that the lot fell upon Laman, and Laman went into the house of Laban, and he talked with him as he sat in his house. Okay, so let's put this into perspective, guys. The 116 pages, Joseph Smith is really mad that Martin Harris did what he did, right? So now they're casting lots to see who's going to go into the house and get the pages. Well, if you follow along these passages, this is Nephi talking. Nephi is Joseph Smith, right? He doesn't even go into the house himself to get the pages. He sends somebody else in to go get the pages to talk about this, right? So let's go to verse 12, right? Verse 12. And he desired of Laban the records which he had engraved upon the plates of brass, which contained the genealogy of my father. Well, here's another reference to his father, right? Because Lehi is Nephi's father, right? Joseph's father. And behold, it came to pass that Laban was angry and thrust them out of the presence, and he would not that he should have the records. Wherefore he said unto him, Behold, thou art a robber, and I will slay thee. Okay, well, what are the guys that took the plates or took the 116 pages?
They're conspiring men.
Yeah, so so this is literally the story. Chapter 3 is literally the story of what we just read in D&C 10 and 3. Okay, connect the dots, put it together. What they're basically saying is, for behold, instead of he says, thou art a robber, is what they're saying is, for behold, thou art a huckster, and we're going to go 1828 on your behind, right? That's, in a nutshell, that's what they're saying, right? So the rest.
So you're saying that Joseph put sort of his real life experience in this ancient record, and he romanticized it, because we don't know. I don't think Joseph knew in real life who may have had it, but he was imagining this Laban-like person or persons that ended up representing Laban, and so he was sort of like making it an exciting, like romancing the stone adventure, that was happening. So he's putting, like, in his mind, he was creating this adventure to try to re-get the 116 pages as a fantasy that he's putting in. And so it's still based on him losing this 116 pages, but he's creating all this extra stuff around it to make it exciting.
Solomon Spaulding, right? So in my opinion, the Book of Mormon is Joseph Smith's diary, and it's written in a Solomon Spaulding fashion. I'm not interested in what the book that Solomon Spaulding wrote. I'm not interested in what that book is even about. Okay, I'm specifically talking about the style of writing. Okay, the Book of Mormon is written in the same style, but it's Joseph Smith's own story. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. So we can talk parallels and all that kind of stuff, but for this presentation, I'm not talking about any parallels at all. I'm literally reading directly out of the Book of Mormon, because literally the answers, every historian's questions, every person that has ever wondered about any of this stuff, the answers are literally in the book. You just have to read the book and figure it out, because all of the Doctrine and Covenants, every one of the Doctrine and Covenants, 1 through 19 specifically, are written before the Book of Mormon is published. Okay, so what happened to Alvin? Right, Alvin was the breadwinner. Right, he was the guy that made the family all the money. He built their house.
That's right. And he met his
all,
early death.
So when Alvin died, now that burden goes on to Joseph, right?
And Hiram.
And so they have to come up with a plan. Their money's gone. Okay, they got to come up with a plan because their older brother Alvin is not there to take care of the family. So
they're gonna write a mystery book at first about how the Native Americans came to America, a fun fantasy, and then later on he decides to turn it into the creation of a religion.
Well, I think some of that is involved here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in fact, I know some of that's involved, because if you read the Book of Mormon, you can actually
piece it together.
Well, they actually tell you that story in the Book of Mormon about the Lamanites and the Nephites, and that story was in the 1820s era, right?
Right.
And so this is Joseph's personal journal, as far as I'm concerned, and it's been created to fulfill the gap of Alvin. Does that make sense?
Right, so that they can make money selling a book.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's keep going on. This is fun stuff, guys. This is really fun, and it gets better. You're gonna be shocked. Okay, let's hit verse 17. Okay, let's go down to verse 17. Chapter 1, or I'm sorry, First Nephi, chapter 3, verse 17. And let's find out what's going on here. Okay, for he knew that Jerusalem must be destroyed because of the wickedness of the people. Right. Okay, so he's mad, right? He's going on. So let's keep going to 18. For behold, they have rejected the words of the prophet. Wait, what? You mean to tell me that they don't believe? Okay, so let's keep going. Wherefore, if my father should dwell in the land after he hath been commanded to flee out of the land, now his father, right? For behold, he would also perish. Wherefore, it must be that he flee out of the land. Okay, so that brings up a couple other questions, right? Why are they leaving Palmyra in the first place? Okay, what's happening? What's going on here? So they're kicking their dad out of town, right? And so the father has to flee also. So we'll get into my thoughts about that in a second. Okay, so verse 18. Let's hit verse 19, right? Because now it says the father is going to perish too. Well, that's important, because why are they leaving Palmyra? Okay, let's keep going. Verse 19. And behold, it is wisdom in God that we should obtain these records, that we may preserve unto our children the language of our fathers. Well, that's really interesting. The language of their fathers. I got to take a drink for this one to wet the whistle.
I have a feeling that the magic part is going to come in pretty soon.
It's coming. We're getting there. Okay, so what is the language of our fathers, right? Or his, what is the language of his father, okay? Well, now we got to go to Moroni, right? Or I'm sorry, Mormon. We got to go to Mormon. So let's hit up the Book of Mormon. In the Book of Mormon, guys, we're going to go to verse 9. Let's hit up verse 9. And let's see if verse 9 says anything about the language of our fathers. Okay, this is why it's important to read this book, you guys, because it's the questions, or the answers to all of your questions, are in the book. They're in the book. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
So I feel like you're taking the part of Dan Brown, and you're, what's Dan Brown famous for? The author, for writing about the mysteries of the Catholic Church and stuff like that. I can't remember what the name of his books are. The Da Vinci Code. So you're like Dan Brown, and you're showing us the Da Vinci Code of Mormonism. It's like the Joseph Smith Code.
That's right. I'm showing you the secrets of the Book of Mormon.
There you go.
In ancient times, they would call it the mysteries, right? What are the mysteries? Okay, the mystery cults. Okay, so
Language of the Fathers.
Now we're in chapter 9 in Moroni. Let's start out in verse 32. Okay, chapter 9 in Moroni. We're going to go from 32 to 34, right? So let's read this. And now, behold, we have written this record according to our knowledge in the characters. Okay, here we go. The characters which are called among us in the Reformed Egyptian. Wait, what? Reformed Egyptian? Okay, I thought this wasn't even in the Book of Mormon. I thought there was no Reformed Egyptian mentioned whatsoever in the Book of Mormon. That's what I've always been told. Gene, is that what you've been told?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have it right there. Mormon, chapter 9, verse 32. Let's keep going. The language among us, the characters in the language among us, which is Reformed Egyptian, being handed down and altered by us according to the manners of our speech. Let's keep going, guys. 33. And if our plates had been sufficiently large, we should have written in Hebrew. But the Hebrew hath been altered by us also. What? Have you ever looked at the character paper?
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, so the Hebrew has been altered by us also. And if we could have written in Hebrew, behold, ye have had no imperfections in our record. Okay, let's hit 34. Okay, this is the last one. But the Lord knoweth the things which we have written, and also that none other people knoweth our language. What? Nobody else knows the language of Mormon.
It's a secret code.
Secret code. Okay. Now, if you read the book, you will find out that there is a land called Mormon. It's next to Jerusalem, and the language that they speak, nobody knows the language. Nobody can speak to them. And that is one of the reasons why they have to flee. Okay. I'm going to give you a cliffhanger on that. And you're going to have to wait until some more videos to find out the answer to that question. But the Lord knoweth the things which we have written, and also that none other people knoweth our language. And because that none other people knoweth our language, therefore he hath prepared means for the interpretation thereof. This is where the magic comes into place, right? And we're going to get, that's the seer stones and all of that kind of stuff. To sum it up here, right? To kind of end on chapter 3, because the rest of chapter 3 really just goes into more detail about this situation, right? They go to Laban, they try to get the plates, and it just tells a story. You can read chapter 3. It takes literally about 10 minutes to read it.
So that's why I think that he's fantasizing, right? He wishes that he could have cut the head off of whoever took the plate, the 116-page manuscript pages, and that he could have retrieved him, with his brother in tow or whatever, or a posse or something. But that didn't happen exactly that way. But it's still part of the story because he wishes he could have done that. And then
later on,
we'll provide a link to the character. I'll provide a link to a photo of the character page.
Okay, so later on, he does actually cut the head off of Laban. Laban does get his head cut off. So what are we talking about here, right? What I just said to you, right? I just gave you the could possibly be an answer to how they wrote the character plate, right? It's they altered the Hebrew, right? The Hebrew had been altered by us also. Okay, so if you look at the character plates, you can literally watch any video, Dan Vogel, Mormon discussions, and they will talk about this. Okay,
And we'll
okay.
include links to those shows in our description as well.
Yeah. So here we're talking. We're also introducing. So these passages that I just read to you are more or less him admitting to doing this stuff, right? These are shenanigans that he's doing, and in the Doctrine and Covenants is where he literally admits it. And then in the storyboard, right, the story of Nephi and all of this stuff, he writes about what these prophecies are, right? Does that make sense? He's telling you the story through the book. He's telling you the story of the Doctrine and Covenants through the book at this time, 1828. Okay. So another thing, in regards to the parchments, you can go to Doctrine and Covenant, Doctrine and Covenant section 7, and if you read the introductory paragraph, he talks about the parchments, and how John puts the parchment. It says he hid it up, is what he says. Well, if you watch some of these other videos, they talk about how they think that what that means is they either put it in the chimney or they would put it above their doors. Okay. So what's going on here? Okay. This is the magic part of it. All right. Gene, I'm going to throw something out that's going to really blow your mind. Okay. If you watch, Dan Vogel did a video, I think it was around 9 months ago, maybe, with Mormon Discussions. And he talks about the angels. One of those angels' names are Adonai. Okay. Now, I have really been holding back on saying this because I really wanted to get my T's crossed and I's dotted. Okay. You can look up the Lesser Keys of Solomon, and you can look that up, and you can look at all of the angels' names. There's literally like 1,000 of these names or something, right? There's many, many names. Adonai is one of the deities in the King Solomon. He's one of the King Solomon angels, right? And so is Alma. So there's several names that are King Solomon angels, right? So if you want to go back to that, you can watch again any of these videos. Dan Vogel, one of a really good one to watch is Dan Vogel's Joseph Smith, the Necromancer. Okay, and he talks about all the circles, all of the medallions and the pendants
Yeah,
and all that
Joseph
stuff.
Smith and I think the other Smiths as well, in like a little leather packet, they had a folded up parchment that they would keep with them for, I guess, protection or something like that. And also like a Jupiter talisman.
Yeah.
And so Dan talks about all the different characters on the parchment that Joseph Smith had on his person when he died.
I totally agree with Dan Vogel, except for one thing. He goes through, he shows you the characters, he tells you what they are, all of this stuff. But the one thing that he does not say is these are Solomonic magic symbols. Okay, every single symbol on that paper is Solomonic magic. Those circles, those are Solomonic magic symbols. There's alchemy involved, the alchemy symbols, and there's also astrology. Okay, that's why it's called the Jupiter talisman. That 4 is the symbol for Jupiter. Okay, that's why they call it the Jupiter talisman. But the little squiggly line, the X with the circles on the ends, those are Solomonic seals of King Solomon.
So
Okay.
Joseph was familiar with characters that nobody else knew about or could understand except for his family. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he altered the Hebrew, remember? So some of those characters are actually Hebrew, but they're altered.
Right.
All right.
And so it's like his family making up a code that they borrowed from magic sources that they felt would give them some benefit in life. It would help them out, like carrying
Right.
a rabbit's foot or a lucky charm of some sort. That's what they were. That's what they were going for. But like you say,
that's right. But
if you look at the characters parchment, you can tell that they're altered to characters. They look like, you're saying, they look like Hebrew and they're altered.
That's right. So one thing about the parchment is that parchment is called a layman. Okay.
Right.
Now you can play with words, lawman, layman. I mean, it's spelled exactly the same way, so you can pronounce it however you want to. But that is called a layman, though. And those papers, you put your symbols on them, okay, for what they mean, right? The angels you're trying to invoke and all of these things. But from there, you personalize it. It's personalized. And everybody that knows anything about any kind of, any sort of magic whatsoever, Wiccan, it doesn't matter, okay? You personalize your charts that they're personal to you.
And right? Would that sort of maybe have to do with like palmism, like reading what your life story is? So you'd read, and I'm not saying that's exactly what they use, but something like that. Somebody is sort of like prophesying their life, and so they design the characters on the parchment to match what they need. Almost like when people are playing Dungeons and Dragons, you want to make sure when you go into battle, you have the right curses, you have the right potions, you have the right setup so that you can go into battle and be victorious.
That's right. So palm reading is part of the divination, right? So divination, if you look at divination or what divination really actually means, okay, it's not divining rods. Divining rods is part of it, but divination is where the folklore, the folk magic, that's where that stuff comes into play, right? They're very separate ideas, okay? You have to remember that when you're dealing with Solomonic magic, it's very specific. You're invoking specific angels to either help you or hurt, whatever. And then you have to bind those angels, whether they're good or bad. You have to bind them to you, and that's what the circle is for. You draw the circle so the angels can't harm you; they can't reach you. That's what the binding part is, right? Fascinating stuff. But you can go to it's called the Lesser Keys of Solomon, and you'll literally see all of this stuff. Read it for yourself. There's like 4,000 pages in that book or something like that. It's a big book, but nonetheless, all of this stuff is in there. And what happened to Alvin, right? They raised Alvin from the dead. They tried to raise Alvin from the dead. What is Solomonic magic? What is necromancy? What does necromancy actually mean? Summoning of spirits and raising dead bodies. So when they did this with Alvin, it had such a profound effect on Joseph that it freaked him out, right? It freaked him out. And all of this is the Solomonic magic part. And now I don't want to sound like I'm picking on Joseph Smith here, okay? Because this literally was something that was in the air. Everybody is doing this, right? But here's the caveat. When you're forming a religion based on Solomonic magic, that's the issue, okay? That's a problem. Because these other people, they're doing it to find treasure. They're doing it to find water. They're doing it to find, give me some wood so I can build a fire tonight to keep my family warm. This is the stuff that they're doing in 1820, right? You got to remove your 21st century brain and put on your 1800s cap and think how they thought. We don't think how we thought today, because you're doing this entire process a complete disservice by doing that. Anything in antiquity, you're doing all of those people a disservice by doing that. So it's really important to bring all this stuff back together and to say, like, okay, let's connect the dots. See, that's what Dan does not do. Dan tells you all this stuff, but he never says it's Salmonic magic. He says it's magic this, magic that. He talks about alchemy. He talks about astrology, the deacons. He literally talks about all of this stuff, but he never says this is Salmonic magic. There is a part where he talks about one of the pentagrams, and the only thing that he says is it refers to Solomon. That's literally the only thing he says.
It'd be interesting to check on D. Michael Quinn's Early Mormonism and the Magic World View that was originally published in 1987, where Quinn reconstructs, the early age that Joseph lived in, showing evidence for folk magic in the 19th century, relating just to what you're saying. Is that was the soup that they were swimming in, the water they were swimming in. That was what was in the air. That's what most of the, we'll say lower classes would think about those things, as you would need them in order to navigate, your life. You need to have protections. You need to have potions. You need to have cursings. You need to have all those things just to survive.
Yeah. But when you watch that, though, I want to be very clear that Salmonic magic and divination are two entirely separate practices. Okay. Folklore. What is folklore? What is folk magic? Not folklore, folk magic. I'm sorry. I got them mixed. What is folk magic? Well, everybody, like literally everybody today practices some sort of folk magic, right? When you meet a girl, right? Or a guy, you say, "Hey baby, what's your sign?" That's folk magic, right?
I remember as a kid having a rabbit's foot on a little keychain.
Exactly.
That would somehow protect you. And I remember like having little sayings, like when you're walking to school, don't step on a crack or it'll break your mother's back.
Exactly.
Or if a black cat walks in front of you, it'll be bad luck. Or Friday the 13th, or walking underneath a ladder, or all kinds of different things that is still reminiscent of folk magic.
That's right. And so when you cut the head off of a chicken and you drip blood around a circle, that is Salmonic magic, not divination. Okay. And everything that I literally just said to you, you can read it in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. You can literally read this.
So you're saying that like folk magic is just little things that happen, and the Salmonic magic is like very specific physical things that you have to do, drawing things, pentagrams in the ground, animal sacrifice, blood as part of the what's going on as part of the ceremony.
Yes.
Just like in Harry Potter, there's different types of magic, right, that they do,
Right. And you're literally invoking spirits. If you read the Book of Mormon, what is Moroni? What is the first vision? Okay. I mean, think about this, guys. You have to connect some dots here. What are they doing?
The angel Moroni is like a treasure guardian over the golden plates.
That's right. So a little side note that I've been kind of working on. This has nothing to do with this particular topic, but one thing that I've been working on is one of the angels in Salmonic magic is called Assayabai. Assayabai. It's Assaibi. Okay. Well, that angel is the minister of Mammon. We're playing with words a little bit here, but that's Mammon. So Alma is also another one of the angels in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. Alma's in the Book of Mormon also. Adonai is also in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. So there we have two for sure. And I'm only in the C's. Okay, it took me probably 3 hours just to get to the C's. That's how many there are. There's a lot. I mean, I'm not joking you when I tell you there's a lot. There's a lot of them. Okay, so I'm going through literally looking for characters and cities and things of that sort that are in the Book of Mormon and relating them to the angels of Salmonic magic.
Now, on one hand, if there's so many names, then it would almost be likely that some of those names would relate to like any family and their names of their uncles or aunts, or you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So on one hand, it would become less evidence, right? Because that's what they say. Like apologists will say, proof of the Book of Mormon is that in the Middle East somewhere there's a little marker that says NHM, which is similar to where Lehi and his family stopped because there was much water there or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but somebody said there's NHM, if you put in different vowels all over the globe, so
Yeah.
The fact that it appears one time, within a few hundred miles of where you want isn't necessarily a bullseye. And you're not saying necessarily it's a bullseye, but you're saying it's something that could be added to all the other magic worldview things, all the other evidences of, names that were around Joseph that, he might have used as his characters, names of cities around the New England area that were put in the Book of Mormon. There's just each one of those things is just maybe, but when you put them all together, you have a clearer picture of what might have happened for a naturalistic way of the production of the Book of Mormon instead of a spiritual or unnatural way of the production of the Book of Mormon. So that's what the Mormon Atheist is about, is like, how could the Book of Mormon have been produced in a naturalistic way? What was in the air around Joseph could have grabbed and put in the book?
Yeah, so I know we're short on time here, Gene, but I want to throw one more thing out at you, and we're gonna play a little word game here, right? Because if you watch the previous videos, one of the things that we do in those videos, or one of the things that I said anyways, was look up Zedekiah, look up Zedekiah's third son, Mulek, in world history. If you can find this guy, please let us know, because I cannot find in world history, not Mormon sources. I don't want any Mormon sources. I want outside Mormon sources for the validity of Mulek and Zarahemla. Okay, and so we're playing that game. We're looking up the names of these people as we go. We're looking up the names of the cities as we go. One thing that I looked up was Laban, because Laban is an important person, right, in chapter 3 and further on. Rahab is also an important person. So I looked that up. I looked up Laban, and I was like, what is what is Laban? Well, if you look up Laban, right? Laban Rahab, it's a type of skim milk. It's literally skim milk. Okay. Aresh. Okay. Aresh is also coincides with Abish, right? That's a cheese. It's a yogurt. So from Laban, right? From Laban Rahab, you create Aresh, right? From that, it makes mish. Mish is a salty cheese. It's fermented. Okay.
And how does Mish relate to the Book of Mormon?
I'll get there.
Okay.
Karish is cheese made from Laban, right? Okay, so the Book of Mormon references is Rahab, right? Rahab is a legendary sea creature in the Book of Mormon. Okay, it's a sea creature, right? Laban. So now we have Laban and Rahab, right? Second Nephi verse 8, chapter 8, verse 8, right? Also, this creature is in Isaiah 51, verse 9. Okay, these two passages and a few verses before and after, they're almost verbatim. They're literally verbatim. Chapter 8, 2 Nephi chapter 8, verse 8, Isaiah 51, verse 9. They're literally verbatim, okay? And they're talking about Rahab. All right, so Arish is Abish. Alma, here we go into another angel, right? Psalmonic angel, chapter 19, verse 16. They talk about Abish. Kish, right? Kish is actually a part of the process of taking Laban buttermilk. It's actually buttermilk is what it is. It's buttermilk. It's part of the process in creating other types of cheeses. Okay, that's in Ether, chapter 10, verse 18. That particular word quiche there's Reb Lakish, there's several different other quiches in the Book of Mormon, right?
And those all relate to cheese?
Cheese and buttermilk.
It's funny because, like, even though it's different spelling, quiche Lorraine, is a cheesy egg, French dish. I mean, it just came to my mind.
Okay, so let's go to Karish. Karish. Okay. Karash is an idolatrous god. That's in the book of Abraham, chapter 1, verse 6. Karash. Okay. So the Book of Mormon's pretty cheesy, guys, because
That's
it's
right.
literally talking about cheese.
I mean, if you think about it, shepherds, right? They could have a goat, there's goat herders and shepherds. And later on, cattle are important in different places. And all those animals produce milk. And in order to preserve the milk so that you can consume it weeks or months later, you have to make cheese. That would be an important sustaining nutritive, supplement to your diet. And, why wouldn't those be important? And maybe you would include them in your stories to tell your kids, like, a recipe for making cheese. Like that could be Isaiah, wherever you were reading. That could be, to them, 2,500 years ago, it was just a sort of a mystical way of saying what the recipe for making cheese or the elements that you would need, in order to do it. And then you just watch your parents, make cheese. And so that as you grew up, you would be able to do it yourself.
Right.
And those would be like reminders.
In the 1800s,
an agrarian society.
In the 1800s, what are they doing? They're making butter. They're churning butter. Okay, these terms are literally still used to this day. This stuff is still called the same thing to this day, with making it through this type of process. So they're churning butter right? They're making buttermilk. This is an everyday process that they're doing in everyday life. They're literally doing this every day, right? And
It's life sustaining.
these references to cheeses and buttermilks are names of characters in the Book of Mormon. Yeah, and so, if you're going to call a layman a lawman, why can't you call Karash, right? It's the same thing. All you're doing is changing literally one letter. In the form of Kish, it's actually called Akish. Okay, so all you're doing is taking the A off. That's it. You're changing one letter. And throughout the Book of Mormon, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
And so if you think about it, that matches changing Hebrew. If you change a character, it becomes a code that only you and the people that know about the changes could understand. And if you change words just by you adding or taking away a letter, you're also making a code that only you might understand, you and your family or something like that. So that's just how I would relate it a little bit right there.
Yeah, it's just an interesting theory. I'm not saying this is a word of God.
That's
but
right.
It is a theory though, and it's very plausible, because what are they doing in 1800s? They're making cheese. They say in the Book of Mormon itself that he altered the characters, right? Moroni, verse 9. Okay, we literally go through this, and we just actually talked about this. So
that's right. And I could end on a big joke. All of Western religion is based on Jesus Christ.
Gene,
So anyway,
are the best. You are the best.
On a light note, thanks, Derrek, for your presentation today.
Yes.
This is the third one, and it looks like we only have 4,382 more to go, and we'll see how far we get. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe. Okay. And if you're in the chat sometimes in lots of different Mormon-themed podcasts, you could see Derrek as the Mormon Atheist chatting away and adding value to those shows. All right, everybody, have a good day.
Good. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.